Hi, favorite teacher. I'm Tori from Next Day Teaching, where I give you classroom management tips and strategies that you can use tomorrow. Today, I want to show you how controlled choices can increase student motivation and get your students more engaged in learning. First, imagine you're at a staff meeting and there is a table set up with nothing but plain bagels and plain cream cheese. Now, maybe you're like me and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I love plain bagels and I love plain cream cheese. This is the best. Maybe you're thinking, I hate plain bagels and plain cream cheese is disgusting. This is the worst. Or maybe you're thinking, meh, I'll eat it because nothing else is available. That's kind of like your students when you give them one option for showing their learning or one option for displaying their understanding. Now imagine that same staff meeting has a table filled with 7 different types of bagels and 4 different types of cream cheese, and there's a tower of muffins, but you can only pick one thing. So maybe you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is way too many options. How am I ever going to choose? Or maybe you're thinking, I know I like bagels. I'm going to go for the bagel. Or maybe you're thinking, meh, I'll just pick whatever because I don't really care. Again, this is like your students when you give them tons of options or no options at all and you just say, okay, you can pick whatever way you want to display your learning. See, we think that we're giving them the best of all worlds, right? We're giving them the power to choose how they want to show their knowledge, what they want to do to demonstrate their understanding. But sometimes having too many options is just as paralyzing as having only one option. Now, when your students are faced with that, either too many options or only one option, they're going to have some similar reactions to you with that table of bagels at the staff meeting. Maybe your students will resist. I hate doing it this way. I hate showing my knowledge this way. I hate insert whatever performance metric you're using, tests, presentations, essays. I hate doing this. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to resist it. I'm going to delay it as long as possible. Maybe they're the good kids and I'll do it because this is what teacher asks, which is certainly not a bad thing, but they're also not really invested in the work or its outcome. Or maybe they'll do it. They won't resist or complain, but they're also not going to put their full effort into it because they didn't choose it. It's not their favorite. They know they have to do the job. They have to do the thing, but they're not really invested. And that's where most of your students fall. So I would suggest instead giving them a controlled choice. Don't give them all the options in the world on a platter and say, okay, pick one. Give them instead 2 or maybe 3 options. More than 3 or 4, that's too many. Remember the staff table with all the breakfast food options? Your students will still present the same outcome. They'll still demonstrate the same learning. You're still working with the same objectives, but they're deciding how they show their learning within these controlled options. Plus, on a practical level, you still have to grade all of this. So using the same rubric with the same criteria really simplifies your job. For example, I used to teach religion as a subject, and my students were the good kids. They tried hard. Doing well in school was an important value of the culture where this school was located. However, when it came time to actually take the test, many students were getting significantly poorer grades, lower grades, than I knew they should be earning. Even when I gave them a review day the day before that was the same as the questions on the test, and they were still scoring poorly. So I thought, maybe it's the format. Maybe there's something about test that makes their brains turn off. So I started giving them controlled choice. When we got to the end of a chapter, they could either make a presentation with slides, but not actually give a presentation. They could prepare an oral presentation and give it to the class with no slides. They could choose to take a traditional test, or they could have a conversation with me. Now, I made rubrics for the conversation with me, for the presentation with no slides, for the slides with no presentation. And guess what? The things that they had to include in those performances were the exact same skills and knowledge that were being tested on the traditional test. It was the same learning objectives, the same outcomes. The only difference was the format. Now, once I started giving them that option, I still had about 2/3, maybe 3/4 of my students who chose the traditional test, but they were more engaged because it was a choice. Even though nothing else changed for them, the format was still the same. The questions were still the same, just obviously different topics depending on the chapter or the unit. But the only thing that changed was they decided, I don't want this option, I don't want this option, I don't want this option, I'm going to do this option. Their scores went up. And because I had several students who probably should have had IEPs, but due to the school's situation, they didn't, I was able to accommodate them without making it seem like an accommodation. I was able to show them, okay, on your last 3 tests, you scored this, this, and this. Those are not passing grades. So next chapter, I need you to have a conversation with me instead, because then I could sort of pull out the answers I was looking for, even if it didn't exactly match what was on the answer key. I was able to still finesse it out of them because they knew it. They just struggled with writing it when there was no support. Now, when I gamified my grammar curriculum, I gave students the illusion of choice. So this is the quest map that they followed. And each location has 2 spots available. These extra 2 were for something I called side quests. And students got to pick, do they want to go to the Emerald Caves? Do they want to go to the Sapphire Lagoon? Do they want to go to the Onyx Mountains? They thought that they were choosing what lessons they got next. They weren't. The only thing that changed was the wording of a little scenario that I read right before they took the next test. I mean, boss fight. So maybe you don't have the ability, or you're not given the agency to make those kinds of decisions for your classroom. Maybe you're locked into a specific performance metric at the end of the unit. You're not allowed to deviate from what your team members are doing or what admin has decided this is how you're going to teach. But think about other ways, other small things that you could do throughout the course of the day to give students a choice. Could they write a paragraph or draw and label a picture? Could they choose what book to read during independent reading time? Does it really count if they're reading a graphic novel? Spoiler alert, yes, it does. Could they choose whether to sit at a desk or stand at the counter? And hey, now you're differentiating. So I'm wondering, what's your favorite choice to give students? And have you ever given a choice that backfired? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, consider subscribing, and I hope you have calm transitions and quiet hallways.